Good morning, guys, and welcome to the podcast. Our guest today hails from Los Angeles, and he is an entrepreneur. He's a startup founder, Jason Vego, and he is CEO and co-founder of Bevs, which we'll hear more all about. It's a convenience store tech platform. It's raised over 5 million in venture capital, and I'm really happy to have him on and to discuss his work with Bevs. So, Jason, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and briefly introduce yourself, chronicle your journey and how you got to be doing what you're doing today.
Yeah, I'll avoid the selling lemonade on the corner when I was a kid, which did happen, but I'll skip a few of those steps. But I'm Jason. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Bevs. We build software for liquor stores and convenience stores. The high level journey is I worked in big tech for many years, a company called Citrix. We had a lot of different roles. I was in marketing, communications, operations, project management, all of that, but I always had the entrepreneur bug. And I kicked off that motion with a software platform for dog groomers, actually, in 2018. That failed for a lot of different reasons. I did own a dog, but I really didn't know what it was like to own a dog grooming shop. But I learned a lot in the process. I then got my MBA from UCLA Anderson. And then in 2019, going into 2020, my co-founder, Victor, had owned and operated liquor stores and convenience stores for 35 years at the time and really wanted to build something in the convenience store space. There were delivery apps, there were POS systems, but no one was really building software for liquor and convenience stores, especially independently operated stores. And in our market, 71% of the market is independently operated and small chains. So you can't overlook them. And so we teamed up and we built Bevs to help independently operated and small chain liquor and convenience stores manage and grow their business. We had a pivot. We had a lot of challenges in the journey, but we've definitely cracked the code a little bit. And we're in about 1,000 stores across the US today.
Interesting and great introduction. And so, what particular problem in the market does Bev solve, and or what are is it solving a pain point or frustration, or is it helping business owners achieve a certain goal? Talk about that.
Yeah, so how it started was really less of a, we call it vitamin versus painkiller. It was more of a vitamin, right? We wanted to help stores go digital. This was pre-pandemic. Then the pandemic hits, and then we really felt like they needed to go digital. But as we really dug into the problem, we really pivoted the business to be more of a painkiller, which is these stores, as we really got into it, a typical liquor convenience store in the US has 5 to 10,000 unique SKUs. They're getting hundreds of cases of items delivered on a weekly basis and they just have no effective solution, let alone people and resources to manage and track that inventory. And so we were doing the math, and these stores were losing out on hundreds of thousands of dollars on sales because they mismanage their inventory. They don't know what they have in stock. And that got really expedited with the pandemic because it's very hard to sell online if you don't even know what you have in stock. And so the problem we're really solving is at its core, helping a store manage, track, and automate the inventory they buy and sell so that they always know what they have in stock. They don't run out of items their customers want. They price those items in the most effective way. And so far, we still have a lot of work to do to help fully solve that problem, but that's really the problem we're trying to solve.
Interesting. And it's an interesting problem small business owners have in this space. How are you thinking, or how are you using artificial intelligence to help? Because it seems like it's a data, like inventory tracking problem. So how are you using AI to help you?
Unfortunately, I don't have the best AI story, but we are doing a little bit. So, where we really dove into it was instead of using a flashy AI story or like trying to do voice automation, these are all things we are building. So, over a time, a store can automate a lot of different stuff. Where we really play in the AI world is the data side, which is there is a very specific set of data, what is being bought and sold in independently operated retailers that nobody has today. Our mission first and foremost is to capture the data. And frankly, we still have too much more work to do to capture all of that data before we really start like applying AI models, but we're getting close. And so in the next year, we will have real-time in-store purchasing and sales data. When we have that, the vision is to layer on a lot of these AI tools, which will be automation, predictive pricing, predictive out of stock items. Trends is a really big one. Like predicting a trend before it happens based on what we can see across thousands of stores. So unfortunately, very little in AI today, but I think we're going to be better positioned than most because we'll have data that nobody has. And so I'm really excited about you can bring me on in a year or a year and a half, and then I will tell you all the really cool AI stuff we're doing.
Yeah, interesting. The other so what's interesting is you've been through a lot of failure, mistakes, learnings, growth and win. And so share some of your biggest wins with Bevs and what you learned from it and also your failures too.
Yeah, too many failures to count. No, we've had I think our fair share. I'll kick off with the failures and go into the wins because the wins are a little and more positive, but a few of the failures. And failure is a tricky word because whether we call it failure or big mistakes or whatever you want to call it, we'll call it failures. We made a lot of those, which is I think the start was we invested a lot of time, money in the original Bevs, which was essentially another delivery app, a competitor to DoorDash or Grubhub or Uber. That was the wrong solution to the right problem. And so we put a lot of money, time, resources, and the pivot into the next sort of failure was we played in both realms too long. We were pivoting the business to a B2B SaaS platform, and we were trying to do both at the same time. And it was just, we couldn't do both well. So that was failure number two. I think another sort of big failure we made was once we started growing really fast. We started noticing like the new solution was really solving a problem for stores. I raised venture capital and we grew really fast. We hired sales really fast, and I'm a very hands-off leader. I realized too hands-off. And so we started overselling the platform. We weren't properly onboarding stores. And so we started to churn a lot of customers, and we realized we had to pump the brakes a little bit, reinvigorate our process, our training, who our ICP customer is. So those are a few of the biggest ones. I think outside of that, like I take a lot of blame for certain hires we made, hires I didn't properly onboard or train, but I like to believe we keep learning and growing from it. Shifting to the positives, what things have we done really well? I think we've listened to the customer really well, right? So we went to market with a totally different solution. We listened to their needs, we fixed them. I think another thing we did really well is we stayed focused on a very specific subset. So I'd get these questions all the time. Are you going to go to a different market? Like, how big can this get? And every time we're like, no, we are hitting independently operated and small chain liquor and convenience stores, hard stop. Is there a 5 or 10 year plan where maybe we do other things? Possibly. But for now, I'm not even playing that. It is how do we really dominate in this sector and help an audience that has been overlooked? And especially in VC, VC does not love selling to independently operated mom and pop businesses. I think the third that I'll finish off with is how to identify and capture these stores. So, like, they're not self identifying online. That's part of the problem that we're fixing. So, you can't just do Facebook marketing or search optimization or any of that. We are sending physical postcards. We are having them call us from landing pages. We have to physically visit a lot of these stores in person. And I think we found a really unique motion to acquire a set of stores who is not digital yet in an effective way with strong unit economics, which was always a fear. So those are a few of the things. I think, yeah, a lot of things we're trying to do more, but we're on track.
Interesting. So the next question I have for you is what is your total addressable market for this industry, and it sounds like you're a first mover, but how are you keeping competitors at bay like copycats, and what's your USP?
Yeah, so our TAM, like our total addressable market, is a little over 300 billion. Where we get those numbers from, so this is a bottoms up model, right? So we're really looking at what can we actually sell. So there's 152,000 convenience stores in the US. There's 1.2 million globally. Looking at the total market, we are looking at a global market. The few ways we expect to make money, most of them we are doing now, not all of them. One of them is subscription, right? We do charge a monthly subscription today. That's part of it. A second is revenue share. So we help these stores make money selling online. We do take a piece of that as we help these stores. We're doing several million in GMV today. So we are bringing millions of dollars in revenue to our stores today. The third is an interesting one we're starting to play in, which is data monetization. As we have all this really interesting information, what you asked before around AI tools, yes, we can apply those to the store, but know who wants the data more than anyone, even more than the store, is the brands. snack and drink brands, Pepsi, Coke, Anheuser-Busch, Miller Coors, right? These huge companies selling into convenience stores, they want the data. So we just started monetizing data. The fourth being we see a future where there's like merchant processing, right? Where we can help literally manage the payments in store and online. We don't touch that today. So that's really when I look at the total addressable market. To your second question, like how do we wedge out competition? It's a funny place we play in, which is we absolutely have competitors. But usually we are not competing with them because they do not want to go to the independently operated and small chain stores. So 90% of the time, we are not competing with a competitor in the store. It is them doing nothing digitally, not looking, have not optimized or not selling online. And then we come in and get them to go from not doing anything to actually digitally managing inventory, selling online. Occasionally we come into a competitive sort of situation, but really the short answer competition is the store's not doing anything instead of doing digital.
Interesting. And what your origin story where you're talking about where you have to send postcards and you have to visit these stores in person, it reminds me of because I was listening to the story of Airbnb and before they were in Y Combinator and Paul Graham told them they have to go visit hosts in person and sounds like that's where you are. And what are your plans to once it hits product market fit and how do you plan to scale it when things start to really grow exponentially?
Yeah, there's a few different ways. So yes, we started in the early days fully like field sales, right? We would literally just walk into stores. That was 100% of acquisition. Today, we get a lot of inbound through the postcards, through some of our marketing efforts. That's now about 20% of our inbound. We see that growing. So when you ask about the future, I think we can bolster up those efforts where in the future we can do postcards, a little bit of digital as these stores become more digital and bring a little bit more inbound. Inside sales is working a lot better now too. So over half of our stores are coming in where we are calling the stores we are not physically visiting. That is something you could scale up quite easily. And in terms of like really truly hitting scale, where we see this kind of all coming together is partnerships. So we integrate with a lot of different companies. We have strategic partnerships with DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber, with point of sale systems. We've been in long talks with Pepsi. And so I do see a future where there's going to be a multifaceted sort of mechanism here, which is I always want some control of our go to market, which is like we'll have sales, we'll have inside and outside, we'll have inbound lead generation. But where I think that really hits scale is partnering with someone like a Pepsi, where we have a joint win, which is they get the data that they really want, the store runs more effectively, and they sell it for us, or at least partner with us to sell it. We've just kicked off a few of those efforts. A couple point of sale systems we're integrated with are starting to sell Bevs for us. And so we're seeing the writing on the wall that we can get the best of both worlds with a couple good partners.
Yeah. And for the audience and the listeners and the viewers, it's an entrepreneurship podcast, so we do have startup founders and those that want to start their own companies and either raise capital. We'll talk about this process where this a moment of inception to finding product market fit, any ways to shortcut the process, and all the way to raising Series A, etc., and venture capital.
Yeah, so I think it's a really exciting time with the AI tools out there, which is again, we made mistakes on how much we spent in the early days, but even if we didn't make those mistakes, there was still some set of costs be associated with kicking off a business. Today, it is you got to get a product out there and put it in the hands of the customers first and foremost. Before that, talk to customers, right? Get to know the space, learn the customer, make sure there's a real problem you're trying to solve. I'm a big believer in, as I mentioned before, painkiller over vitamin. There are some great companies that offer a nice feature set that you can create a good business. If you want to build a venture-backed business, I think you have to find a problem with a solution. Then part two would be use the AI tools out there. Like I'm looking at some of these tools now, and you can get a website or app off the ground in weeks. It won't be perfect, but you can get a real thing off the ground, put it in the hands of customers, let them use it. If you did what we did, you would have saw pretty quickly they did not need another delivery app. They needed an operating system to frankly run their business and use other delivery apps. Get to that quick. So the quicker you get this in the hand of customers, paying or not paying, get it in the hand of customers, you'll see. You might have nailed it. Maybe you got lucky, in my opinion, but you might have nailed it. If you didn't, you reiterate, get the solution there, get it into more customers. Once you get a customer paying for anything, that is when you can start to kick off the conversations around fundraising. There are different realms. I could go on and on about venture capital. It's had a lot of pain for me and a lot of excitement. We wouldn't be here today without some great investors. But when you're looking at family and friends rounds, pre-seeds, I'm a big fan of like accelerators. So in LA, there Slauson has an accelerator, Techstars has an accelerator. This is where you can get a couple $100,000 to really leave your job, assuming you're working at the time. Maybe you're not, but assuming you are. For me, I was doing Bevs in my full-time job at first because I didn't have the ability to just not have a job. So I love accelerators. They're this perfect balance of getting a ton of resources, help focus, and just enough money to leave a full-time job, go all in. You accelerate, assuming those programs work well. And the momentum is really what it's all about is once you start to, even if you're not at product market fit, like to raise venture and really grow, it's how do you see consistent up and to the right? That could be revenue, that could be customers, that could be usage, something like that. And you go raise money when you have the momentum. And that's been the game we've played. Sometimes you can't control momentum and you have to hunker down, get more lean, rely on your current investors or team, et cetera. But that's in a nutshell what it looks like. And now, as we've hit product market fit, we're really going to these larger rounds. We're also getting approached by different acquisition opportunities that are really interesting to me. People that I've seen, they sum is greater than its parts. And I'm excited to see where we can take this either with some additional capital or as part of a merger or acquisition where we really win together. So we'll see.
Yeah. And I love how you describe the process and talk about this because there's a lot of people they want to just remain independent. They don't want to raise venture capital. They just want to be solopreneurs or small business owners or like lower, less scalable or on a lesser scale. So how do you decide whether to go like super big, like you're going versus just doing your own thing and being successful there? How do you decide that?
Yeah, I think the big thing to think about is what the competition looks like and what your customers' needs are. So for us, transparently, there was a piece of it which is we were always behind. We spent too much money and took investor money so early that once then we build the team, we get a really good team, we bring on a lot of customers. Like we were in the hamster wheel, which was like I couldn't just go profitable at that point. We had too many customers that needed too much support. And so we had to keep fueling the flame to raise money. I think if you are selling to a customer and you can create a product that is solving a need and you are not getting beat by competition time and time again, don't go raise external. It also depends on your personal needs, right? Like for me, it was I could not leave my full-time job and just not make money for a year and a half while I built up a startup. And so I think for me, to round that up, I think it's a couple pieces, which is if you don't need to build features really fast or support hundreds of different customers, you don't need to go raise venture. But I'm an advisor to a startup that they're seeing their competition raise tens of millions of dollars and then beating them in the market. You'll see that pretty clearly where you asked me the question, and that actually wasn't our case, but it was if I start losing customers because I can't build the features they need, I might need to go raise money and build faster. And really the goals you want to set in terms of your own equity and all of that. I think we maybe raised too much too early in terms of our current business, but like looking back, I think a balance is a really good place to be. There's so much talk around like VC or bootstrap. There's a huge spectrum in the middle. There's private equity, there's growth equity, there's very specific pre-seed and seed investors who like want to see you get profitable and not raise after. So I'd say like really determine your needs, make sure you're positioned to win in your market, learn really fast, and then maybe consider a smaller or unique type of investor who'd be a really good fit for you, where you get to keep a lot of your equity, make a little more money, and then be a little more aggressive. If I could hit the restart button, I'd play in that middle ground.
Yeah. And then I know you're still early, but talk about your thoughts about getting acquired versus going public or different exit plans and strategies.
Yeah, so I'm a little unique as a founder, which is I've never cared a ton about my own equity. It's always been just I want to see the market change. I think it's an overlooked market. Again, 71% independent and small chains, primarily first generation Americans that are like have just been overlooked, yet they have great businesses. Most of our stores are doing over $1 million in sales a year. And so for me, it's whether it's raise more money or it is get acquired, whichever gets us to the mission and the vision faster of basically helping these stores operate as if they're mini Walmarts and compete against the bigger players and win. I think we all want to see the local retailers win instead of it all being Amazon and Walmart. And we're taking acquisition conversations now, which is earlier than you'd normally see for a company of our size. But there's a handful of companies that I'm seeing that I go, us together in 5 years will be so much faster. And I can't raise enough money to meet what you can do, but it's going to depend on the company. And we still have investors. We need to not just take any offer, obviously. But my short answer is really in 5 years, I want to be helping the most possible independently operated and small chain retailers. Whichever path gets us there, regardless of my equity or money, is the decision I plan to make and hopefully have support from my board, which so far I do.
Excellent. And if people wanted to find out more about you, connect with you, support you, learn more about Bevs, how can they do that?
Yep. So website is bevs.com, bevz.com. I'm on LinkedIn. That's where you'll catch me. I'm not cool enough to be on really any other social media. So LinkedIn, unfortunately, is only where you'll find me. I post a lot about Bevs and what we're up to. Outside of that, we're not super social on social media because our customers are not super social on social media. So catch me on LinkedIn or check out the website and you'll get a good picture of what we're up to.
Yeah, excellent. I really enjoyed this conversation and I love always talking to startup founders. They're always doing amazing things and keep up the great work.
Thank you.